in a perfect world, there would be metrics that are bringing both the people side of things and the business side of things to a beautiful collision where I understand on my end, all right, this is what it means in terms of the people development and the talent that we need, while also understanding that this is the business objective that we need to achieve. Sometimes it feels like you have to search and really dig to find that. Whereas I think a future where it's clear, it's laid out, and people understand what that means for them, that would make a world of difference.
All right, and we're live. Welcome back to the Leading Well podcast by Blimish. I'm your host, Christian Brown, founder and CEO of Blimish. And today we have a special episode. We're in Inspired to You first, but we're welcomed by Mr. Josiah Owens. How are you, sir?
Man, I am well. I cannot complain.
Awesome. Well, you're on the right show today because this
Man.
is Leading Well. So I know you've been leading this morning and you're well. So I think we'll have
Yes, sir.
a good conversation. And so we spoke a little bit about this before we started rolling.
Yeah.
With this podcast, we try to focus on HR leaders that kind of sit at that intersection between work and productivity,
Yep.
and also wellness and well-being.
Yeah.
And so we've had a variety of different leaders on. You're the first leader who has an expertise in talent development.
Okay.
And so I'm excited to, yes, sir. I'm excited to just get your thoughts on this whole conversation. And so I know with your career, you started in video production, and then you moved into HR, and then talent development, and now you're in program management for a nuclear company. And so throughout your years, when you think about talent development, how do you define it?
Yeah. To me, it's an intentional stewardship of people's gifts. So I always use the word intentional with anything that I do. And I often find that stewardship comes with that because either I'm trying to steward time, a moment, an experience. And as it relates to people being in the talent development space, you tend to be a steward of the talent in an organization. And that includes the development of said talent. And so to me, it comes with great responsibility, but also immense opportunity when you realize the role that being intentional plays with talent development.
Yes, that's powerful. And then how does that show up just in the day-to-day business operations and ultimately the success of a company? And I'm sure you've seen situations where a company has done really well because they've developed their people, or they've done poorly because they weren't intentional, right, about that development. So kind of talk about that importance.
Yeah. So part of it to me is in the message that's communicated when it's not intentional. I know sometimes, when you say things, it can almost be lip service if you're not careful. But it's in the things that are unsaid that can be just as strong, that can almost send a message of you not valuing the talent that you have or the level of development. And it doesn't always have to cost a lot of money to do. It can just be, hey, having a conversation and being curious. And I think that's the biggest opportunity that I see with organizations, taking the time to be curious about what is it that their people are able to do and can do. Where else could their skill sets be leveraged that perhaps they're not being leveraged today? It's when we make the assumption that this is all that someone could do, or that there's nothing else that can be done, that I think we miss an opportunity. And you see morale tends to suffer. You see people get burnt out, and all those things kind of are domino effects as a result.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm glad you spoke about burnout.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things we focus on just in this well-being space.
Yep.
And so at Blimish, we have these 5 pillars of well-being.
Okay.
The first one is awareness. So a person is being aware of their surroundings, not ourselves. The second one is alignment, right? So feeling like their personal values are aligned with the company's values. And then there's agency, the person feeling like they have room to grow, room to make decisions. And then it's belonging, right? The person feeling like they belong with their organization. And lastly is sustainability.
Yep.
So being able to sustain ourselves across the journey of their career. And so when you spoke on burnout, I want to read something to you.
Yeah.
I was reading something from MIT Sloan Management Review yesterday, and there's an organizational psychologist named Nick Petrie, and he spent 5 years researching Navy SEALs, surgeons, CIA agents, and business leaders. And his team discovered that high performers operate in two distinct modes.
Okay.
One is perform mode, so that involves exploiting their existing skills. And then the second mode is grow mode, where they're exploring new territory. And so out of thousands of assessments, they found out that average is split between 60-40 perform mode, grow mode. But he spoke to burnout being heightened when individuals are more in perform mode than grow mode.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, what does that make you think about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks about the way development tends to be couched. Sometimes you can think of development as you take the class, you go to the workshop, you go to the conference, but you're then taking away from your day-to-day the things that you have to get done, right? So then that can create a bit of angst for the person who's trying to develop themselves and feeling like, goodness, I still have a job to do.
Yeah.
And so this concept of almost learning in the flow of work and developing in the flow of work and having access and exposure to things that are almost part of your day-to-day has been a way I've tried to frame development where it doesn't feel so point in time, or that you're having to develop outside of your norm, because it's unrealistic. I mean, to think about all the travel, all the hours, I mean, there's no way you could possibly get every single thing done if you're devoting equal parts development to getting the job done as well. And so for me, it's almost been a bit of a shift to try and work around, is there a project that's going to allow me to learn kind of in this sandbox? I can't break anything, but in doing this project, I'm going to be forced to have an output, a deliverable of some sort, but I'm learning along the way. And it might also be in the form of learning what questions to ask, or learning what is not clear, and using that as an opportunity to develop. And I think it's a bit more non-traditional than I've seen in the past, but I found that that actually can help you not be so burnt out from trying to do two things at once, and knowing that it's hard to kind of juggle both.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And when it comes to investing in people in their development, who is the decision maker? Whose job is it to make sure that their people are being developed?
I'll give a both and answer, because I don't think it's any one person's role. I think it requires a leader or a manager to have advocacy, and to certainly be listening for and supportive of the things that an individual might want to do. I also think it's up to the individual to be able to raise and express, this is what I'm interested in, because a manager is not a mind reader. So there needs to be some of that self-agency that's going on. And then I think it also takes the organization kind of coming around those two individuals to rally and say, hey, whether it's resources, flexible arrangements, or time that can help to support both of you, here's what that looks like. So it feels as though there's almost these three parties coming together to make it happen. So that's why I don't know if it's one individual in particular. It feels like a function of the individual who wants the development, the leader who's directly perhaps responsible and can see that, and then the organization rallying around the two of them to make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think about culture.
Yeah.
Because a company has to have a culture of growth and development, and all those pieces to work together.
Yeah.
And for you, you told me that once you did matchmaking for tech employees.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about aligning people's strengths with the right opportunities?
Yep. So part of it required a conversation. So I mentioned the word curiosity earlier, and on paper, you can see that. I mean, there are databases that say what someone is good at, and almost your digital resume of some sort that one could pull from to say, well, I could deduce from this you'd probably be good at X. It goes a step further when you have a real conversation with someone to understand, yeah, I could do this, and this is the other piece that I'm actually interested in, that could open the door to way more opportunity than the one thing that you were looking at. And it doesn't mean that that project that we were thinking of assigning you to wouldn't have been the right one anyways, but I wouldn't also know that, hey, you actually have a different skill set, or you could probably flex in an area that I couldn't just gather from what was on paper. That now that I've come to understand, we've built relationship and trust, you can also tell me, you know, this really isn't working the way I thought, or I want to go in a different direction, and I can advocate for you very differently. And that happens when you're in kind of relationship,
Yeah.
to understand what it is that someone needs, as opposed to feeling really transactional and me just spending so much time on matchmaking and not
Right.
relationship building, to understand
Interesting.
what the right fit is, not only for the organization but for you, the individual.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It makes me think about trust.
Yeah.
So the first guest that I had on is HRCHRO, and his name is Sean Campbell, and he talks about how trust is one of the most important factors in leading people.
Yep.
People have to know that their leaders trust them,
Yeah.
and it has to be more than just verbiage. It has to be shown in actions
Absolutely.
as well. And so when you're meeting people for the first time, you're being curious about who they are, what their values are, what their goals are. What is your personal strategy for building trust?
Yeah. So part of it is around, I'm gonna go back to the word curious, to get to know them as individuals. Um, I tend to like to introduce a call with at least 60 seconds, especially if we're time boxed and don't have a tremendous amount of time. If I could tell you about Josiah in 60 seconds, I try and model at least what it looks like to share, to be vulnerable, to give you at least an idea of the person that you'll be conversing with for the next half hour. So that way it doesn't feel like we're talking to strangers. And so that to me has helped kind of get over the hump of, who are you? What are your intentions? What are your goals? And after I've done some of that level setting of who I am, I get that back from the individual. I then get to say, here's how I'm thinking we spend the next however much time we have. Is there anything that I'm missing that you're looking for to get out of the conversation? So inviting someone else into the interaction to make sure that they're getting something out of it and getting that agreement up front tends to help to at least make sure we're aligned from the start of what we want to get out of it. And then making sure that there's a level of follow up, or listening to, or finding ways in the small things to check in, see how things are going. Little nuggets that people share, kind of locking them away. Fortunately, we've got a lot of great tools that AI has offered us to either transcribe with permission conversations, and use that to help you document some of the fun facts or things that you can bring up, that as I then come back, and if someone has expressed something that they're going through, I can come back and say, hey, just checking in, or they share something great going on in their lives, I can come back later and use that as a moment to check back in. And it allows there to be that level of, hey, you listened, or you remembered. Even if that memory was helped with AI, it shows a level of intentionality and thoughtfulness that I think helps you to build some of that relational equity.
Yeah, that's good. And as you're speaking, I'm constantly thinking about just the words that you mentioned: intentionality,
Yeah.
curiosity,
Yeah.
and it seems so powerful when it comes to building relationships with people. And I believe there are more leaders who kind of had that mindset.
Yep.
We would be in a better state,
Oh yeah.
but we're not. So
That means we got work to do.
We got work to do.
We've got work to do and opportunity.
Yeah, I
I'll
love
say
that.
that. I'll say
And
that.
so, in your opinion, what's the biggest blocker to employee growth inside of organizations today?
Part of it, I think, is a misalignment with where we're going. And what I mean by that is, vision requires a level of kind of stoking and constant feeding. You can see things that are on the wall, you can hear of things in town halls and conversation, but connecting people to, where are we going, what are we trying to do, to even understand, how do I rally and support. And I think the pace of change that we go through adds another layer of complexity that makes engagement hard. I think when you don't have that agency for yourself. That also adds to it, depending on relationship you have with your manager. That adds a layer of complexity to it. But I think if I kind of zoomed out and started at the highest level where I think there's opportunity, I think it's around that constant setting of vision so that people understand where we're going and can then kind of assess, well, what do I then need to do to get there? Are there any gaps that I have? Can the organization then take that vision and distill that into, well, these are the things that we need to get there? Then you look at the people to get there, and it almost starts to make that vision come to life, not as something that's just aspirational, but we have a path to actually get there.
Oh,
And it gives steps in order to actually make it to that destination.
that's really good. That's really good. And so for you as the VP at ATD, and ATD stands for
Association of Talent Development.
right.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly exposed to thought leadership
Yep.
and learning and development. So what are some trends that you think more companies should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah. Um, I know AI is all the rave right now, and I mean it is doing some phenomenal things that I don't think we could have even fathomed years ago. AI does not replace the human ability to sense, to be intentional, to be strategic, to pick up on language and nuance. Um, and there's a level of putting it in its right place that I see as needing to be done such that we don't find ourselves swinging the pendulum so far that we get adverse outcomes. So that's one trend of the right usage of AI. And I think investing a little more time on the emotional intelligence of it all at the individual level to make sure that you've got right level of productivity and being effective that AI can absolutely help and completely transform, and understanding how to have a conversation, because AI and technology does not absolve us of needing to understand how to talk to people.
100%.
Another area that I can see is just a consistent level of collaboration and partnership. So one of the things that we've recently embarked on is looking at others who are in the same space. So HR tends to have all the performance functions. It has the compliance element to it. It's got talent and learning to a degree in it. It's got recruiting and all of these other areas that makes for a space where you've got a lot of different players and people in there, a lot of different organizations as well that are part of the space. And so here recently, finding ways to partner with other organizations who are doing similar things or have people involved, I think is helping to get us out of our silo. I'm just focused on talent. Well, in order for me to focus on talent, I need people to be part of the organization. So I need recruiting. I need to understand the strategy of it. I also then need to understand the business side of the house. So from a vision and an analysis and finance perspective, understanding the impacts. If we want to have a budget for people to develop, what does that look like? And building that in. So I can see talent needing to shift its role from being an auxiliary function to truly being a partner to the business, to better anticipate, support, draw connections to outcomes in a way that doesn't make it seem like, oh, this is just fluff and pie in the sky. No, truly, if you have more emotional, intelligent people, that impacts business in a different way. It impacts leadership, it impacts retention, and all of these things are connected. But we need to be kind of connected to understand that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was thinking about the metrics side of it.
Yeah.
Because I know metrics is important when it comes to HR because you
Yep.
have to have return on investment from just business
Absolutely.
level. So
Absolutely.
in your role, what are some metrics that you focus on?
Yeah.
And then just from a visionary perspective, what perspectives do you think would also be helpful to track to be able to speak to the return on investing in developing people?
Yeah. So I'm actually in the space of trying to put metrics together, interestingly enough, because before there's been such an emphasis on activities and things done. So I did X number of trainings, or I had X number of people who registered and did a thing. And admittedly, it wasn't telling the full story of what it is that we were wanting. And so started to shift from, instead of looking at numbers, looking at um, the target in terms of goal. If we think about performance and we think that high performing leaders should be at X point, where are we seeing in terms of a deviation from that? Are we seeing that in certain areas and departments? If so, what type of support, consistent, intentional kind of feeding and care can we give those spaces in order to bring them up? So kind of benchmarking in a way what good should look like, because, and it's not intended to reduce any individual to a number or a rating, but it is intended to set a standard for what we would like to see, that at least gives people a goal to track to, that isn't indicative of perfection. But I would expect, if you're operating with these type of individuals, you have this level of interaction, you have direct reports, you should be at least here, which is a starting point, knowing that anything else gets to be developmental towards continuing to increase your effectivity. You had asked another question about what was it? Was it the performance, or?
Yeah, so I asked you what metrics you were working on currently, or what metrics are important in your space, but then what metrics would you like to see? And you kind of spoke to it.
Yeah. In terms of what I would love to see, almost and this does not exist yet, at least in my world. So I'm about to just dream for a moment. Metrics that are based on business growth. I would love to see some sort of tie to talent and development, where it's not just we want X number of new members in our space, but how does that result in increased development, or how does that tie back to the outputs of our people, who then need to go and develop and educate members on XYZ. So maybe a vision is a metric that is more business based, that is connected to development. So I don't know where those conversations start or should happen, but I in a perfect world, there would be metrics that are bringing both the people side of things and the business side of things to a beautiful collision, where I understand on my end, all right, this is what it means in terms of the people development and the talent that we need, while also understanding that this is the business objective that we need to achieve. Sometimes it feels like you have to search and really dig to find that. Whereas I think a future where it's clear, it's laid out, and people understand what that means for them, that would make a world of difference.
Yeah. On the individual level as well, you think it's important for the individual to know how
Absolutely.
they impact the big
Absolutely. Because I think that's where the questions come up around, well, how's what I do supporting this big grand thing? And that's hard. And it's when people don't know, they guess. When you assume and you try things, then we're misaligned somewhere. And then you're wondering why, from a performance, or I'm burnt out because I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not getting direction. It has a domino effect down the line when there is a lack of clarity on how does what I do fit in. And if the individual has lack of clarity, I dare say if the manager then has a lack of clarity, you see how that then either trickles down or flows up and across the organization. And then you just have an entire lack of clarity, lack of trust, lack of motivation. All of those things kind of feed into one another.
Right. Yeah, that's so cool. And I'm hearing just how what you just spoke to, it speaks to the three of those pillars that I named at the beginning: alignment, agency, and belonging. Because once you have aligned values, then you start to have freedom around the work that you're doing. Correct. But then is the business piece of it, the business metrics, that brings belonging.
Correct.
Because you're saying, okay, I belong here. I have this value.
Yeah.
to it, right? So that's good. I wanted to just speak to that because
Yeah, man.
I saw the synergy there.
Yep.
And so now today you're working in the nuclear industry,
Yeah.
which is high stakes,
Yeah.
heavily regulated.
It's a time.
Yeah. So what are some unique lessons about talent and leadership
Yeah.
that you learned from working in this space that you believe other industries could learn from?
Yeah. Um, I do believe, at least from an industry perspective, this concept of feedback being a gift is something that I hadn't really heard before. I mean, we go through performance reviews elsewhere. People give you feedback on whatever your deliverable is all the time. But truly, in this particular space, it's almost evangelized that feedback is a gift. And as you look at it as such, it gives you an opportunity to correct, to adjust, um, to put feelings aside for things being nitpicky, but to really understand, okay, if the goal is for us to put out something that's really good and helpful, it requires input and feedback. That then also allows for you to kind of reverse engineer and plan backwards to say, okay, if I need this feedback, it's going to require me to have this ready by this time and get this person's buy-in. And I think before coming into the organization, that might have been viewed as additional steps or bureaucracy or more red tape and super political. I've since come to appreciate the level of intentionality and thoughtfulness that if we're going to put something out, we want it to be the right thing. We want it to be at the right time. We want it to be the most helpful and to the right group. So if you think about, if you're going to communicate something, you want to do it with that in mind. And I think that's actually shifted the way I now approach
Wow.
even development. What is the right time? Do we have the right person to even kick off whatever it's going to be? Can they set the tone in the right way? How does this sound coming from me? Should this come from senior leader? Should this come from someone's manager? Are we also sharing results? If we have all this feedback and all of this data and all these assessments that take place, should we be sharing them with the direct leader of the individual so that they can be working together and partnering? So that way development is not happening in a silo. So those have been some areas and some things that I've seen in terms of opportunities, certainly for the organization, but I've come to also appreciate that level of intentionality that they take.
Yeah. So feedback and collaboration.
Yeah.
So would you say that speaks to the sustainability piece of this circle of well-being?
Yeah.
Sustainability requires feedback, constant
Yeah.
feedback, and constant collaboration. Would you?
Absolutely. And I think when you have those two, you've kind of created a microcosm of a community around you.
Wow.
And when you, because community can give you feedback.
Yeah.
If you ever been part of next door or what have you, where you can see what's going on in the neighborhood and they're giving feedback on the changes that are happening. But then also being part of collaborating as you're about to build something or do something and you ask, hey, do you have a contact or what have you? Same concept where as you have that feedback that's taking place and the collaboration, you come into community and that allows you to grow, learn, develop in a way that if you were just by yourself, kind of on an island, you might not have that same opportunity because your neighbor or someone else outside of you can see something you don't see. They can point out something that with the right intent behind it can actually be helpful and can completely change trajectory if you're open to listening to it. And so that's where that feedback part comes in. And then the collaboration could be, hey, I might not be the person to get you there, but I know someone who can, or I know of this thing that could help you. And as you do that over and over and over, and you have more people who are providing that feedback and you are intentional about how you collaborate, that's how that community, it's almost your personal board of directors that can come alongside you and can tell you, hey, I wouldn't do that, or you probably want to shift this because if you do this, it might not land how you want it to, or, you really should try that. Step up here, speak here, do this in this way. And as a result, you then go further than you could have gone by yourself.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and it makes me think about the study of positive psychology.
Yeah.
So it's either Harvard or Stanford. One of those schools, they have the longest ongoing study on happiness.
Yeah.
They discovered that one of the biggest detriments to happiness is loneliness,
Yeah.
right? And so that could be at home or personal life, but it could also be at work,
Yeah.
in your career, not having that community.
Yep.
And so you sticking to community made me think of that, because it's so much more than just you feeling like you belong at your organization, but you realizing that, hey, you have a purpose on this earth.
That.
You have a purpose on this earth that only you can fulfill.
Correct.
But sometimes you need other people that can see that and pull that out
Yep. Yep.
from you, right? And so
Every time.
yeah, so I love how you shared the community piece, because I agree with that importance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so for you, you worn many hats,
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
and you've been an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
corporate leader,
Yeah.
creative professional.
Yeah.
So what are some practices that have helped you keep growing in your career without burning out?
um I'll call it so we talked about community a second ago and people who can give you feedback. So I'm married to someone who gives me a lot of feedback. And my wife is the first to say, you need to stop. You need to slow it down. You're doing too much. Let's be still for a second.
So good.
So a perfect example of trying to practice what I preach is having someone who will pull me back if I need to be pulled back. So that helps. But then also finding pockets that bring joy. I've always found that, the greatest thing you could do is to serve. And as you serve or as you give, that increases your capacity to do and to pour. And so finding ways to volunteer time in different spaces that have absolutely nothing to do with me has been a way that it's allowed me to almost recharge and find ways to be grateful and rebuild kind of that gratitude reservoir, if you will. Also, learning has always been something for me that fills me up. If I'm learning how to do something differently, if I'm growing, that tends to energize me as well. And then here recently, identifying the next person to take the reins has been something that I've been trying to do more of. I've made the mistake in the past of becoming the face of, or being the one to do the thing, present the thing, drive the thing, pick up the thing, take the thing, show the thing, and that is how you burn out. Part of it I realized was because I was trying to control so many things, and what I thought was an intent to lead with excellence, I think actually robbed others of the opportunity to learn and understand and grow in the way that I had. I'm the product of people who gave me an opportunity to try something and do something. So trying to create more spaces for others to learn and do it in a developmental way that positions them to be successful and have similar experiences that I had to grow has freed me up just a little bit more. I'm not an expert at it yet. I'm still working at it, but it's freed me up a little bit more to not burn out as much because others are coming alongside to help. And as we get into relationship and community, they also start to understand and pick up the vision, and I can cast that and kind of start to model the very thing that I was talking about earlier in a way that allows others to be part of helping to execute that vision.
That's good. That brings me back to what you started the show with, was talking about stewardship.
Yep.
And for me, I'm having to realize that sometimes stewardship is not just being all hands on, right? It's about sometimes being hands off,
Absolutely.
and welcoming more people
Yep.
into, but being able to communicate the vision and the purpose.
Yeah. And that's a skill. It's absolutely a skill to be able to convey that, and it forces you to even slow down and pause sometimes, because if you're a creative or a visionary, you think of things really quickly and you process extremely fast. And rightly so, especially if it's your idea. But the skill that it takes to convey that and also to give someone else a chance to support, there's a vulnerability piece that comes with trusting someone to carry what might be your baby in every way in terms of vision and ideas, but on the other side of that, it gives someone else a chance to learn, to grow, and it frees you from the sense of you having to do everything. It's impossible, and that's the first way you'll burn yourself out.
Yeah, so good, so good. So as you wrap up here, I have a couple more questions. So first, well, two questions, kind of from the same lens, or same area. My first question is, what advice would you give a young professional who feels stuck in
Yep.
the perform mode
Yep.
and wants to lean more into the grow mode?
Yeah. Beware of comparison. I think we find ourselves in perform mode when we're looking to our left and our right of what others are doing, and that makes it feel as though you have to perform to keep up with someone else or something else. Um, that's the greatest trap. If you're not laser focused on just what is in front of you and the thing that you should be doing right now, um, because it could and should look different from your peers. And so I see that as being an area to always kind of keep a pulse on to make sure that you're not getting caught up in comparison. The other piece as it relates to getting out of perform mode, getting in a space where you are building that board of directors, who is your person or your mentor. And I mean, not making it weird or awkward to say, hey, you want to mentor me? But also, you never know what can happen if you do that.
I'm not gonna.
I've been fortunate to have people who have kind of unofficially stepped into that role. And part of it was because I actually followed up from the time we met, and the level of follow through and being intentional with stewarding relationships lets others know how serious you are and that you're not trying to be a user. So I can see it being important, especially if you're trying to get out of perform mode, going into relationship building mode, because the right relationship can put you in a space where you just being you is enough and you're not having to prove value or worth. You showing up and being in the room and just contributing thought leadership might be more than any presentation or anything else that you could have done. But also, in order to earn that type of trust, you have to have relationship with people that have been able to see, identify, call that out within you. So intentionally finding yourself in community and soliciting feedback then can help you step out of that performance piece and then finding something that brings you joy, whatever that is, whether that's working out, volunteering, you name it, finding something that has nothing to do with work per se, has everything to do with enjoyment in a way that allows for you to kind of take a step back, but also just learn and be curious. And making sure that it has no strings attached to it. One of those things for me, I actually want to get my pilot's license.
Oh wow, amazing.
And my wife jokes with me all the time. She's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, why not? Why not?
Literally.
I mean, you get in planes and you fly all the time. I might as well learn how to do it myself. I took up tailoring clothes as another thing that allowed me, while I was a broke college student, to actually be able to show up in business professional and look put together. But also it served me as I've gotten older to be able to take something that might have been a thrifted item and turn it into something that looks custom. And so finding ways to apply that to even DIY home projects that allows me to turn a space into something that is usable and that is custom and that feels like it's tailored to my needs or my family's needs. That has absolutely nothing to do with perhaps what I do day to day, but I can see the level of thoughtfulness and curation that goes into those other elements that I've learned from that can then come over here and be applied to how I build a relationship or how I show up in a space that feels just as curated, just as intentional, as my space or my personal life might be too.
Yeah, yeah. I see the clear relation between developing a piece of clothing or a piece of
Yep.
furniture and developing an individual,
Yep.
right? You just have
Absolutely.
the vision and the curiosity to wonder what all can this be. It is.
Yeah.
What all this can this be? So that's so good.
Yep.
In my spaces, both online and physically,
Yep.
are known for the quote, "You're always one connection away from your dream."
That part.
So
That part.
that quote, that philosophy helped me, move abroad,
Yeah.
just from speaking to people and asking
Man.
questions.
Listen,
Right.
we want to be like you when we grow up, man. So proud and so good to see you representing like that, man.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm happy just to have this space again, on the thing Inspired EDU.
Yeah.
I'm the Comcast from the flagship lives on by Comcast right now. And I think it's really important just to, like you said, show up in spaces,
Yeah.
make yourself seen, show up to serve
Yeah.
as well. I think it's Earl Nightingale has a quote that says, "Your rewards in life are in direct proportion with your service."
Absolutely.
So a lot of times when you want to earn more, it just means you need to serve more. Right.
That's a simple formula. That's a simple formula.
It's so simple. And so as we end here, I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
So if you had to give one principle for leading well that has stayed true across your entire career, what would that one principle be?
I'm going to use my favorite word of all time. So the favorite word of all time is impact.
Oh wow.
So chase impact. My own business that I started years ago is branded FYI. And FYI professionally might mean for your information, but I switch that to be for your impact.
Oh, I like that.
And that's always been something that's motivated me to wherever I go, whatever I do, make impact. Make sure that there's evidence that you were there in the best possible way. That as a result of your being in a space, either you were remembered or there was something that you did or said that resonated, or the product that you left was actually helpful, or that the person that you mentored was actually changed and transformed in terms of the way that they were thinking. The team that you were a part of actually did more, and it's not because you owned everything, but as a result of perhaps them seeing how you moved and modeling things that shifted the entire tone, or even your presence alone helped to shift and change the dynamic of spaces that you were in, or your ability to bring strategy to a space where it does not exist. So you see in all of those different examples where impact gets to be the loudest thing that remains when you aren't there anymore. And so for me, in terms of something to chase, it's not money, it's not titles, it's not even relationship, it's impact. And as you're chasing impact, I think the direct byproduct of that is meaningful relationships. I do believe that you'll be compensated for that in the best way.
Yeah.
But all of those other things get to be byproducts of you actually using what you have to make a difference, to be intentional in this space, and knowing that if you chase that, there's nothing but good that can come out of chasing impact.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you, Josiah, for your time. Thank you for blessing the audience with your insight.
Man,
Thank you, your energy, and thank you everyone for watching another episode of the Leading Well podcast by Blimish. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.